What's up, people? Mr. B again for the Jamaica Mixes podcast. And of course, this is brought to you by Yard Media. Now, today I want to take on a topic that is drifting back into the space. Well, it's not just drifting, it's now there in force. It has always been there. And this matter pertains to the Integrity Commission, yes. And so, under the heading, when the watchdog is dragged to court. Now, let me talk plain. May I speak plainly, because distance don't excuse silence. When the Integrity Commission Executive Director, Craig Beresford, says to the people of Jamaica, regardless of which part with it, that he is very concerned about state entities and their increasing effort of taking the commission to court to halt investigations, he's not speaking in any abstract way. He is speaking from lived institutional experience. And of course, he is speaking on the record. Now, a recent Sunday Gleaner interview of, since this year, 2026, Mr. Beresford very carefully acknowledges quite correctly that any public body has a constitutional right to seek judicial review. But his concern was not exactly about rights. Very important that we appreciate that. It is about pattern, it is about timing, and it is about intent. Now, because this tactic of dragging the Integrity Commission, which is the Jamaica's watchdog, in terms of governance, this tactic of dragging them into court didn't always define Jamaica's governance culture. By Mr. Beresford's own account, this behavior only gained real traction within the last 3 to 5 years. And it's very important that we appreciate that timing matters. Now, why so much? Well, he never said this, but may I put this in there. 3 to 5 years ago, the current administration, Jamaica Labour Party administration, is in government. 5 years ago, they were re-elected to form the government for an additional 5, which took them to 10 years. And so in the course of that period, this amping up of attacks against the Integrity Commission became almost, commonplace, right? Now, and it became commonplace because the Integrity Commission had in front of it the unsigned statutory declaration of none other than the Honorable Prime Minister of Jamaica, Mr. Andrew Holness. Declarations that date back to some 2019, where they're questioning instances on his declarations. And so, ever since that became the issue, the commission has come under attack. And I call it what it is, because the administration basically pillared the Integrity Commission to such an extent that Jamaicans were led to believe or to think, to see the Integrity Commission as the enemy of the state. Now, that is the most ludicrous position, but the administration created that. Whether we want to accept it, yes or no, I'm only giving you the facts. Because the Integrity Commission was created under the Integrity Commission Act of 2017. Who was the government in 2017? The Jamaica Labour Party administration, having won the election of the 2016 elections. And so they deliberately structured the commission as an independent parliamentary body. Independent, insulated, at least on paper, from political interference. Now, they created this entity, and its mandate was not vague. The mandate was very specific and very extensive, investigating corruption and breaches of anti-corruption statutes, monitoring governmental procurement and contract awards, receiving and scrutinizing statutory declarations of assets, income, and liabilities, acting as the designated authority under the Protected Disclosures Act, and conducting public education to promote integrity in public life. Very, very broad and significant terms of reference. Now, when the commission completes an investigation under the law, the prescription is that there is a formal route for those investigations to travel. The reports are submitted to Parliament. It remains confidential until tabled. Prosecutorial decisions then follow, and court, if necessary, adjudicate. This is not what we would call a mafia or a mob justice system. This is essentially due process. It is enshrined in our constitution. And so now we arrive at the contradiction that Jamaicans must confront. Because, as I said earlier, the strikes against the commission only became significant and ratcheted up when Prime Minister Andrew Holness found himself among approximately 7 or 8 members of Parliament on the Jamaica Labour Party side, whose statutory declarations have remained unsigned, and in his case for more than 3 years, dating back to 2019, due to discrepancies identified by the Commission. These were disclosed in the Integrity Commission's disclosure to Parliament between 2023 and 2025. Now, that fact alone should raise serious governance questions, but here is where the paradox deepens. Holness has subsequently taken the Integrity Commission to court, seeking to strike down key aspects of the very legislation that his administration created, legislation that empowers the Commission to do exactly what it is that they are now doing. This is not a theoretical argument, right? This is personal and it is political. Now, keep this in mind. In December of 2020, during the International Anti-Corruption Day activities, Prime Minister Holness himself publicly commended the Integrity Commission, praising its leadership under the then chairman, the Justice Seymour Panton, retired, for operating without fear or favor in pursuit of a just and corruption-free society. These are part of Government of Jamaica's statements dated December 9 of 2020. Now, again in 2022, Holness described the same commission's work as outstanding, citing increased public awareness, improved investigative performance, and technical proficiency. Again, this was a public address made in 2022 by the Honorable Prime Minister. And as recently as December of 2024, he again applauded the Commission's public sensitization efforts and commitment to improving compliance and responsiveness. Now, in spite of that, and despite this unbroken chain of praise, the Prime Minister is now before the courts arguing that the Commission's powers are constitutionally defective. Now, the question must be asked, and I'd say ask the questions calm and normalist. What it is that changed, right? What changed, the law or the subject of investigation? Now, Beresford's concerns, and which are real, When the head of a government, followed by other state entities, repeatedly turns to litigation to stall or suspend investigation, the courts, intentionally or not, becomes a shield against scrutiny. And I think here is a point where we should be clear, especially to my own contemporaries, who live here in the diaspora. This is not about denying anyone access to justice. It is about how delay functions as a political strategy, right? Delay exhausts institutions, delay erodes public confidence, delay quietly neutralizes oversight. And when that delay is accompanied by a political narrative advanced by the governing Jamaica Labour Party that paints the Integrity Commission as biased, as hostile, or engaged in witch hunts, or the damage multiplies. Now, no evidence has been presented showing that the Commission has acted outside of its statutory authority. Yet the institution is itself placed on trial in the court of public opinion. Now, let me say this, because it is my view that the administration basically approached this as a political strategy. And to a large extent, they have been successful at it, because, among a good section of the Jamaican community, they seem to have bought into this argument that the Integrity Commission is on a witch hunt. Now, remember, for most of the last, certainly the last 5 years, the Andrew Holness administration had the lion's share of seats, 49 seats in the House of Representatives. So them could do and get away with just about anything. The opposition PNP only had most of 14 seats. Now, but I digress. There is a historical echo here that Jamaicans should not ignore. In 1993, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, in the case against Pratt and Morgan versus the Attorney General of Jamaica, didn't abolish the death penalty outright, but it did something more profound. It said this: when the state knows its court system moves slowly and still allows people to languish for years in uncertainty, delay itself becomes cruelty. 14 years on death row, the Privy Council ruled, wasn't justice, it was inhumane, not because of the sentence, but because of the system. The principle, as enunciated by the Privy Council then, applies today. It matters, because if delay can turn punishment into cruelty, then delay can also turn oversight into illusion. When the Integrity Commission is repeatedly dragged into court in a system where everybody knows that the Jamaican court system literally crawl, right, panic belly, the effect is not neutrality, the effect is to paralyze the system. And this time, the harm isn't borne by an accused man on death row. It is borne by the people of Jamaica, the Jamaican public, by transparency, by accountability, and by trust in institutions. So the question becomes unavoidable. Are the courts being used to clarify the law or to run down the clock? And so Jamaica once accepted that injustice delayed. Let me repeat that. Jamaica once accepted that justice delayed is justice denied. And so we now have to ask, denied to whom? Is Beresford right to be concerned? Is Craig Beresford right to be concerned? Based on the public record, my answer to that question is yes. The rise in court actions against the Integrity Commission is recent and concentrated. These actions coincide with scrutiny of senior political figures. The Prime Minister's own unresolved statutory declarations sit at the center of the conflict. Political rhetoric has shifted from praise to delegitimization. This doesn't invalidate judicial review, but it does force us to interrogate motive. Now, again, we're not saying that people have the right to take matters to the court. The thing that we need to look at is the motive, right? It forces us to interrogate the motive, because rights exercised selectively, defensively, and repeatedly only when exposure looms are no longer neutral acts. They become tactics. And so here's my word to those of us in the diaspora, right? And I want to speak directly to you guys here living in New York, Toronto, London, Miami, wherever you are, sending remittances, funding schools, building homes, advocating for Jamaica's image. You cannot afford to treat this as just simply local politics. Strong institutions protect your investment. Weak institutions endangers it. Every dollar that you send back to Jamaica relies on trust. Trust that contracts are fair. Trust that public funds are monitored. Trust that corruption is not normalized behind closed doors. Because when anti-corruption bodies are stalled, intimidated, or reframed as political enemies, it is not only the Jamaica that suffers, the diaspora suffers as well. And so there's a democratic line that Jamaica just should never ever cross. Anti-corruption agencies do not collapse only when they are abolished. They also collapse when they are smothered, whether politely, through process. If every investigation meets an injunction, if every finding meets a character attack, if every oversight body must fight to exist, then the rule of law becomes ornamental. Craig Beresford's warning, right, is not institutional whining. It is a flare that is burning brilliantly in the dark. And so, whether we regardless of which political gang you want to support, this podcast have nothing to do with politics. It have to do with running the country in a manner that the integrity of our public officials cannot be questioned, right? And so we need to pay attention to this issue, right? Let me hear what you guys think about what I think. Let me, see your feedback in the comment section. And of course, if you like the content, I'm going to ask you to, hit the like button and of course share. Let's have a discussion on this issue. It's a big issue. I think it's a very critical issue that is germane to how we, provide good governance certainly over the next 5 years. And it also speaks to what portends for the future of Jamaica as we go down the road. Until the next video drop again, if you have not yet done so, subscribe to the channel so that when we drop discussions like these, you're going to be the first to know. Until the next video drop, I'm me, Mr. B. More time.